Hi, everybody. Kennedy Cooper here, and I'm not going to give a big speech up front, but it's time to screen this film in their shoes. This is an award-winning documentary about four men returning from prison and using art as a part of their return to society. Thanks for joining us today to be a part of this event. And yeah, we're just going to get right into it pretty quickly here. All right, and here we go. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. This film is In Their Shoes, sponsored by Writers Without Margins. Go check out Writers Without Margins online and enjoy the show.
I didn't want us to be making this trip again. I emailed the superintendent down at Norfolk and confirmed that he was in custody. Apparently, he did turn himself in after a couple of days and was turned over from the court to the corrections facility. And I didn't know if he'd want to talk to us, and he did.
Well, what I picked up off of is just the question of what the mind wants. And I wrote this piece called What the Mind. In 1989, I had been smoking cocaine for a couple of years up to that point. And it was a serious crisis back then, especially in the Black community. Eventually, my cocaine dependency became so heavy, I needed a lot more money a lot faster to support my habit. So one day I got the idea in my head that I could walk into one of those stores that I would steal something from and put a garment over my arm and bluff the cashier into giving me the money. And so I tried that one day and I got away with it. One robbery led to another. I ended up getting caught, and I never imagined that I could possibly get as much time that I got because no one was physically harmed in any way. I would never hurt anyone, but the law doesn't see it like that. Because the victims were made to believe that their lives were in danger, the charge is the same, armed robbery. I was told that the judge wouldn't accept a plea agreement for me of anything less than a second-degree life sentence.
I'll just put it together real quick. The mind wants luxurious vacations to unheard of islands transported via private jets. The heart wants to wake up to smiling children. I was born in Beaufort, South Carolina, born and raised, lived there till I was about 10 years old. My parents were together till I was about 5. My father was in the Marines, so that was initially why they moved down there.
The main thing that stuck when I moved up here was baseball. That's really one of the sports that I enjoyed. When we moved up here, we actually moved right into my grandparents' house. So it was me, my brother, my mother, my grandmother, and my grandfather all in the same house in Brockton. My mom kind of went her own way, I guess, in terms of like living arrangements. We still saw her all the time, but she wasn't really living with us. It was hard. I was trying to fit in where I could get in, more or less, you know, and that might have been a bit of a downfall. Early on, I kind of found myself hanging with people that, let's say, smoked weed. And I mean, we're talking like 6th grade. It's kind of where my drug use began. Along with my drug use came the bad behavior. I was 14 years old when I tried coke for the first time. That's also the age that I was actually locked up for the first time too. I got into a fight one day and it went south and the kid got really hurt and had to get surgery. And before I knew it, I went to court and they were like, yeah, you need to be committed to Department of Youth Services, which is like juvenile lockup. So that's where I went. I did 14 months at 14 years old. Some kids may go there and kind of change their behaviors or maybe change their way of thinking. Maybe it scared them. For me, it was like, oh, you want to do this? Like, you think I was bad then? Like, I'll give you something to keep me in here for. I met drug dealers, I met gang members. Those were the people that I kind of hung out with. And like, not that I like aspired to be like them or wanted to even be like them, but I guess I was like them because of that situation. Like I was there with them. How was I to sit there and judge for that matter? You know, like I was right there next to them. I was like, oh, when I get out, like, I'm just gonna be a drug dealer. These kids are telling me how they were making $1,000 a day. Like maybe I'll just go try to make some easy money. And unfortunately, that's exactly what I did.
So I did it to the best of my ability. Not like myself. I'm more of a ghetto repetition. I was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and we're a family. My real father, I have never seen him. So I was raised by my younger brother's father, and he raised me since I was a kid. I was born in the projects in Puerto Rico, San Juan. One of the worst part of my chapter here in Massachusetts, I don't know if you guys noticed, I was all over the news, and I was in Mass Most Wanted in 2012. They were hunting for me everywhere here. And I got into a fight with 2 drug addicts. They hammed me up to rob me for my drugs. And I defended myself, and I hit one of them and he hit the floor and died. So I went on the run, you know what I mean? I got caught. I get charged with first-degree murder. They messed up on my bail. They put my bail $2,500 when it was supposed to be $250,000. So I bailed out in 2012. And I go on the run. I didn't decide to leave the country or the state. I stayed here because of my son. So they put me all over the news, all over the internet. They were looking for me everywhere. And that's one of the things that really messes me up in time, trying to get my life together, that's always going to be there. You know, there was no evidence that popped up, you know, because the guy that died didn't really die because of the injuries. He died because we found out he had AIDS, hepatitis C, cirrhosis, and sepsis in his blood. We went to trial, and they put doctors on the stand, and they asked the doctor, what were the chances of this individual with this kind of condition to survive? It was like, he only had 3% chance to survive. The jury took the case upon themselves, and they ruled a not guilty for first-degree murder and a guilty for 2 counts of assault and battery because I admitted that I assaulted them. And then I did the 3 years, and I got out about a few weeks ago. I'm in a fight with my own self, you know, and I'm here because I'm not giving up.
My take on the mind wants is the mind wants a large lake, a sailboat, and the quiet sounds of the wind move us along. It wants the bright sun shining down.
I got something you can videotape after. See those brown spots on the ceiling there,
Yeah.
and over there.
Yeah.
That's from leveling off the needle. If you get a little squirt and it shoots out, that happens. I didn't even realize that. I've never even noticed that till this year.
I mean,
it makes sense, like having a facility like I'm at, where it has, it's basically 4 people that are coming out of jail or prison. It gives them time to get things together because you don't have to pay rent, so you don't have to worry about getting a job right away. At the same time, I had to pass on a job yesterday that I could have turned into a career because of the work restrictions. So now I have to kind of hope that in 4 months when I leave there at the end of February, that maybe that job's still available, or they're still even willing to maybe hire me for another position or something like that. As far as regrets go through my drug use and all that stuff, I mean, obviously the crimes I committed, like I think back now and I can't picture myself like going in and robbing places at gunpoint. What I put my family through, I stole a lot from them, and I mean, put them through hell. And also just, I mean, anyone that I came across in my drug use, who knows, I might have brought them down further than where they were at when I met them. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I definitely feel that way. Police report says, I mean, I don't remember if I said it. The guy, Rob, says that I told him to keep his hands up and don't move or I'll blow his fucking head off. I don't remember saying that. I don't know if I did or not. I mean, at this point, obviously the drugs had a complete hold on me.
Pursuing autobiography, pursuing memoir, pursuing fiction, as well as poetry. We do poetry a lot.
I'm Cheryl Buchanan, and I started Writers Without Margins because, I never wanted to start a nonprofit. My interest in it was my background in working with people in trauma. So I spent 8 years in LA, spending my time with people who had dealt with early childhood sexual assaults. I wanted to do more with the fusion of art and advocacy and work with people on storytelling who had been involved with trauma. And that's where Writers Without Margins began in Boston. What we do in the room is we start with literature, and we start with poetry, and we start with an excerpt of writing, and we let that discussion lead us in whatever direction. Because I think if you walk into a room and you ask somebody to talk about certain memories, that can be a really either invasive or awkward or inappropriate conversation. But if you ask somebody to talk about what's going on in the poem, or what they think the author's intent was, or what they think the imagery is conveying, then all of a sudden you're asking them to connect to it in a way that feels meaningful to them. And then they make the choice that they're ready for.
Now there have been hundreds of studies done on this phenomenon that's now called expressive writing. And we know that it's true. Writing about upsetting experiences has an impact on people's physical health and mental health. The question that everyone asks is, why? It sounds like it's magical. It's not magical. What it is that when people write, what they do is they're able to bring together a really complicated event. And the problem is, if you don't talk about it, you just think of one little part of it at one time and one little part at another, but you never ever have the opportunity to put it all together. And so one of the things we've discovered is that when a person writes about an upsetting experience, it almost forces them to bring together these various parts of it and start to organize it and simplify it in a way that keeping it a secret never seems to work.
So mine has a bunch of chicken scratch and like errors. Can I rewrite it and hand it in maybe in a week?
Yes.
All right.
But then sometimes they'll say that we never see it.
So I'm really inspired when I'm in the room and when I'm in the workshops. There's no one stronger than these guys. And you sense that, and it's palpable. And it's also really revealing what we are up against.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States and Mrs. Trump.
As you all know from personal experience, families, communities, and citizens across our country are currently dealing with the worst drug crisis in American history. That is why, effective today, my administration is officially declaring the opioid crisis a national public health emergency.
We're never going to be able to arrest our way out of this. We're never going to be able to treat our way out of this. And when I say that, people get shocked. And then I say, but wait for the third one. We will never prevent our way out of this. We need all three. We have to focus on prevention because we have to stop the pipeline. If we only treat and not prevent, we're going to have the steady stream of people entering into this process of becoming addicted.
It's difficult to sell to the average taxpayer that somebody, goes to jail and then gets a job. I mean, eventually, that lack of a livelihood or the ability to go to work is just going to make it that much more difficult to not recommit crimes. So we're going to keep reinforcing that this is public safety.
As a mayor, I think as a human being, it bothers us all. And I think that I know some folks put their loved ones' pictures up here, and you can't bring their loved ones back, and they know what the pain is. They know what the suffering is. They know what the stealing in the home is. They know what the not coming home at night is. They know if their loved one got into recovery. They know that happy feeling for a very short period of time, getting that good night's sleep when somebody goes into detox, and then when they break out again, that feeling of desperation, and you hope that the police arrest somebody just to get them off the street. That's what we're dealing with every day in the city of Boston.
If you talk to people who are in prison, I think there is this sense of not having had agency over their own lives, right? And and that's not an excuse or anything, but I think the issues that people face when they're coming home have to do with being able to find ways to participate. What the reentry system does, in fact, is find ways to continue the exclusion. Right? There are all these limitations put on you, all these rules and regulations, which if you violate even slightly, you're back in. So you're really still in.
Some studies will tell you 65%. We know it's more like 85 to 95% of the people incarcerated in this country are there because they have a substance abuse issue. Yet nationally, only about 15% of the people who are incarcerated get to partake in substance abuse treatment. So we've got the key, we've got the solution, but we don't fund it.
We could be doing so much more on this, but it begins clearly with actually funding out a continuum of care so that people can get the treatment that they need when they need it at a price that they can afford. And at the moment, we're not creating that system.
44% of Americans know someone who has been addicted to prescription painkillers.
Paramedics who responded to the incident used Narcan to revive the couple. They were taken to the hospital and later released.
Police say they found 150 grams of fentanyl packaged for sale. Police say the drug trafficking organization was
what they say is one of Boston's biggest drug busts in years. Taking these guns and drugs off of the streets will save lives.
Keep heroin out of the state, tracking how the drugs cross the border from Mexico, making their way to the New York area and then to Massachusetts.
Section of Mass Ave and Melnia Cass Boulevard, just south of Boston Medical Center. Men and women who are...
This poem is entitled "It Was, It Is" by Lorne Harrison. I've come to learn that everything that has been is everything that is. Our spirit never forgets, because in nature, whatever is touched can never be the same.
In total, I was being charged with 5 counts of armed robbery. When I was brought back downstairs, I asked to make another phone call and call my parents. My mother answered this time, and the first thing she said to me was, "So how long have you been shooting heroin?"
I now understand why my heart is so pure and my brain is so fucked up, and neither of them belong together. I strongly understand that the drugs were never the problem. It's the monster I created within myself.
Between good and evil lies human desire. With the ability to choose between the two, we ourselves decide which side we embrace.
I was wrestling with like the idea of what drugs were, and I got introduced at an early age, and then they caught hold of me. So I'm trying to figure out how do I, get my balance in this thing. You have these highs and lows, and you can be as high, you can be all the way up there, and you can say no one's ever going to touch me, and then you get touched.
Listen, be attentive when you learn he died in a hail of gunfire at the intersection of Minnesota Avenue and East Capitol Street in the nation's capital. After thinking that's fucked up, thank your old college roommate for calling. Ignore that he greeted you as Hook, the nickname you went by in the streets. Hang up, remember the dream, forget Hook, wake up tomorrow and feel guilty again. Your story is your story, but how do you do everything else? That's important too. The aesthetics of the writing, how it happens, how it occurs is just as important as the story. So you got two things going on. You got the story, and then you got the writing of the story, and two different things, but they both work hand in hand. And everybody has a story to tell. But how do you tell that story? Why am I investing my time in your story versus somebody else's story?
I'm a little nervous. I'm not used to this, so you're gonna have to bear with me.
That's okay.
My name's Gene, by the way.
Okay, how you doing, G?
I want you to know that tonight, I never thought it happened, but you inspired me, and I'm grateful for that. You know, God bless you, baby.
Thank you, man. God bless you too. Hey, good evening, brother.
First, let me say I love the hat. I also used to love cocaine. While you were incarcerated and writing, did you see it as a therapeutic tool?
Well, it's therapeutic in so much as I felt that even though I was at my lowest point, that I was, believe it or not, I was making progress. Like I've been to 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 drug programs. You know, so I mean, I would go in there, can't wait to get out. You know, so but this time around, I understood, you know, like the magnitude of that. Writing, you know, played an integral part. You know, I'm glad it came into my life.
The first thing that really drove me to begin writing seriously is I thought about my legacy and what I wanted my life to say when it was all said and done. And I didn't want it to be that when I was young, I got involved with drugs and was incarcerated as a result for a very long time, and that be my legacy. And most of all, for my family and friends, you know, I wanted people to be able to say about me that, yeah, I went through it, but I made it through. So my legacy is one of the main things that I'm thinking about now. This is a poem that I wrote last night that I was inspired to write because I had a day it was a beautiful day, but it was trying. The title of the poem is Today by Lauren Harrison. This day was a test. It attempted to challenge my quest. My resolve was more than enough to defend against what came next. And then came this, followed by that. Until this moment where I can feel the strength gained as a result.
I'm gonna get you into acting classes.
I wouldn't mind. I would love to be an actor.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I could play me
I couldn't do it.
in this day and age, but we can get somebody else to play me when I was younger.
The house I live in now, like my father grew up in that house. We just inherited the house when an uncle of mine died. Around here is the first place I experimented with drugs, first place I smoked weed. You know, the last relationship that I was in when I got out of prison, it started off without drugs, but because some things happened, I started using again and drugs became involved anyway.
Have you had a grown-up, adult, intimate relationship without drugs involved?
I really haven't. I haven't had like a drug-free relationship since probably high school. So that first armed robbery that I committed, the facility that I worked at the most, I was there for a couple of years, so I knew the layout obviously perfectly. You know, there was a parking lot kind of around the back. What I did was I did a drive-by to make sure no one was in the store. I quickly parked, walked in the door, and quickly held up the gun right at the person as I was walking in, told them to step way back from the counter, basically said, open the safe. From what I remember saying, I said, open the safe. I wasn't worried about the security system because I just opened the cabinet where it was, ripped all the cords out of the back, and took the DVR system with me. So that was, everything on camera was now in my arms. I cut right through, got in the car, and took off. You know, I needed money. I committed 2 more robberies. I got pulled over by a DTAC, but they arrested me for having a suspended license. The detective said, you know why you're here? And I said, not exactly. Like, I was driving a suspended license. I didn't know it'd be this big of a deal. And he kind of just looked at me like, this guy's crazy. Like, I guess he hasn't clicked yet. So he slid over a search warrant. It was from my parents' house, from my bedroom. That's when it clicked, like, oh shit. And I explained to them, I was like, I'm a heroin addict that I have on average like a maybe $200 a day habit. So they put me in the medical ward. Detox on the street compared to detoxing in prison is 100% different. Dope sickness, I do not wish it on my worst enemy. Can't eat. You're lucky if you can hold down water, get cold sweats. And I was like that. I was in the med unit for a week. That's when I started to realize, like, I'm gonna have to deal with that the rest of my life. That I have armed robbery and kidnapping on my record, and that I'm like speechless on thinking back on it now. Like, I can't believe I've put myself in this position.
When I was growing up, I seen my cousins and my uncles sell drugs. I used to see marijuana and cocaine around the floor under the bed. You know, I used to play around with it thinking it was toys. Everything started becoming like physically violent. So my mother, I remember the first time I got suspended from school, she told me one day when I came home, oh, take a shower and get ready to eat. So I remember I went in the shower and all of a sudden My mom opens the curtain and she had the old cable box wire in her hand. So she started lashing me for about a good 5 minutes in the shower. And the next day when I went to school, I was walking to school and this was the first time that the people in the school noticed that my mother was very abusive. You know, till this day, I got lashes on my back from that time. So they came and they arrested my mother. So I remember they put us out to foster parents. So I ended up going to Bridgeport, Connecticut. Family wanted to adopt me. And I remember after that month, my mom got out of rehabilitation. The social service gave me the choice whether I want to go back with my mother or get adopted by the foster parents. It's hard to accept all the things my mom done to me, but at the end of the day, she's my mother. I felt like no matter how abusive it was, I couldn't live without her. So I chose to go back with her. I figured that at that time I made the wrong choice. We decided to move back to Puerto Rico because my grandparents were dying to see me, my family, and I didn't know that things were never going to get better. In September of 1993, I remember my mother was getting ready to go to a festival. We got in the car and we drove over there, and they decided to go to Piñones. And there's a place called La Curva Peligrosa, which is mean the danger curve. So while we were coming back, I remember my father and mother started arguing in the car. When my father was making that turn, he accidentally switched to the incoming lane. All I felt was me smashing with the seat in front of me. Boom. I went unconscious, and when I woke up, all I see is a lady banging on the window. "Está bien, like, are you okay? Are you okay?" So I see my father, he was like squeezing the steering wheel. You know, the medical record showed that he died instantly. My mother, when I looked, there was just a big hole, and I see her legs, like half of her legs popping inside the windshield inside the car. And then all of a sudden, the guy managed to open the door, and he pulled us out of the car. At one point, I felt happy because there was going to be no more abuse. You know what I mean? Like, you know, but at the same time, I felt like lonely and lost. Like, where am I going to go? Who am I going to end up with? What's going to happen, you know? For me, the drug use began about a month after my parents got buried. There was this little crew. We were like 6 Spanish kids. We used to buy bags of cocaine, and we used to go to the project and sit down, and we set up a table and we start playing, you know, cards. And we sniff, play cards, smoke weed. To bring our cocaine high down, we needed to smoke weed. That first week that we were sniffing, okay, there was no marijuana in the projects. So Monchito came up to us, and I remember he was like, there's no weed, we can't find none, so how are we gonna bring ourselves down? He tells us that they sell manteca. Manteca is heroin. And we didn't know what was that, you know what I mean, or the feeling of it. So I'm like, does it do the same effect as weed? Am I gonna bring this cocaine high down? He was like, yeah. So Monchito went and got the bag, came back, and we all took a sniff out of it. And all of a sudden, about 10 minutes later, I start itching. I got a warmness in my body, and it feels so good, man. It just took a toll, man. Like, I fell in love. To me, it became my woman, my son, my obsession. It became everything to me. In Puerto Rico, to support your habit, you can't steal. Same drug dealers that they'll kill you if you do that, because they protect their neighborhoods. Even though they sell the drug, they protect if you steal a plant from a balcony, they'll cut your fingers. There's a prostitution bar in Old San Juan that there's older ladies from other countries and other places that they come in and they want to have sex with younger kids, and they pay money. So we went over there. I sold myself to older women at bars, you know, that were drunk, were alcoholics, that had money, you know what I mean? So I remember I was 13, I lost my virginity to a 46-year-old lady. I had no choice but to do it because the sickness took over me so bad, and I kept doing it and doing it. I did it for a whole 4 years, supporting my habit.
My role in the drug world, I guess, expanded a lot faster than even I could have expected. I went from nobody to somebody, in my opinion, too quick. And I had turned 18. I called a friend, and she came over, and we were getting ready to smoke weed. All of a sudden, I hear boom, 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 boom. I hear a ton of footsteps. So me and her ran out the back doorway while they were coming up through the front. We made it downstairs, and I opened the outside door, and there's like 3 cops standing there. And that's when I realized what was going on. It was 3 weeks after my 18th birthday. And I was now arrested with a large amount of drugs, and I knew I was probably looking at like 5 or 10 years. And here I am, 18 years old, and And it was ugly, and I got arrested for that, and I was charged with a slew of charges, including drug trafficking, possession with the intent to distribute A, B, C, D, and E, a firearm charge for the ammunition that was in the house. I wish I could say that like things got better, but I was out on bail and I tried to work. It's hard to work 40 hours in a week and make a third of what you would make in one day working for an entire week. You know, and that's the reality. What I was making in 1 week working was probably something I'd make by noon in one day. So I felt like I couldn't survive on that, and I couldn't prepare for what was coming because I knew that inevitably, like, I was probably going to do jail time or prison time for that matter, because I bypassed the whole minor league and went straight to the majors. I justified it and rationalized it by telling myself, you know, I'm going to need bail. I mean, I'm going to need canteen money, you know, like I'm going to need money for when I get out. Like, what am I going to do? So while I was waiting trial on a drug trafficking case out of Superior Court in Brockton, I got raided for a second time. What they did find this time was a gun. When I first went to jail to do this 18 months, my daughter's mom was 4 months pregnant, 5 months pregnant. Now I had a baby who I hadn't actually held yet. You know, like she was real, she was alive, and I hadn't even held her because of the decisions that I made. So shortly after I was released, was kind of the first time that I ever recreationally did like a drug, more than just like once. And aside from obviously weed and alcohol, this person that I was dealing with in the drug world owned a house and he was renting the upstairs. I moved in there and I remember the guys that I lived upstairs with, they both had drug habits. They both used heroin and they both used cocaine. And here I am, like I'm selling both of them, when selling coke when I had it, but like my main focus was the heroin. And I remember one night, the guy, Mike, one of my roommates, he was like, hey, can you grab some coke? I grabbed the coke and I remember we went back and we did it. And, you know, like when everything was said and done, like he was in bed at like 3 a.m. And here I am, like I'm up till noon. I was like, you know what, I'm going to try that. I'm like, I don't want to stay up till noon. So I sniffed a little bit of dope and I woke up the next morning. I was like, wow, that really worked. I've always been that guy that's thought I was in control and like thought I could just put something down when I wanted to. And that wasn't the case with the heroin, because a week went by. I'm like, I've done it every day this week. I'm like, I'm done. I'm like, tomorrow, because I think I already did it that day. So I was like, tomorrow, I'm going to wake up, I'm not doing this. And the next day came around, I did it. And I remember I was so naive to like, what was going to happen. You know, like I just thought I was going to, yeah, I'm done. My daughter's mom picked me up and she was like, let's go pick up Madison. So we drove to my daughter's daycare and she asked me along the way, because I'm sitting there and I'm sweating and I didn't know what was going on. And I went back and like at that point I ran upstairs and I ran and I did something, because at this point I'm feeling so terrible. It ended up getting me another indictment and a $500,000 cash bail, and got me sent to state prison. I skated it off with 2 years. And again, I was just so happy that it wasn't longer than that. And I remember going up there and I was like, you know, like, this is my chance. I remember thinking that, like, this is my chance. Like, I haven't been able to stop the drugs for the last 6 months, because that's all it was from day one to the last day.
This morning, you're going to hear from elected officials, medical experts, and advocates who are battling the opioid epidemic in their communities.
Where we are is still very much in the middle of this, and we have a long way to go.
One thing I'm concerned about is on treatment side is going too much. We're going way too far into medically treated addiction. There's just too much. I mean, we're talking about it in the country. We're talking about it in the cities and towns and the states. It's just way too much. You know, I agree with using methadone and other things to help you come off the drugs, but not long term. We're going to make pharmaceutical companies rich by allowing them to create drugs to treat the people that they created drugs that got them addicted.
And if we go back, we found out that 10 years ago, less than 30% of medical schools even educated physicians on addiction. That's a major gap in medical education.
But we need to change our language because that has a direct impact. And, and I got to tell you, I remember in a very personal way knowing that I needed help.
Mm-hmm.
And I was too afraid to ask for it because I was afraid people would think I was stupid, that I was weak-willed, that I didn't have the character that I needed. And we really need to do a better job of really understanding that this issue affects all of us.
I'm seriously gonna open them right now. You guys haven't even seen them yet. So we had 34 contributors this year. 17 of them were from the same workshop as Zach and Jean and Stephen and Marcel. I hope to do a reading. I would love to do a reading with all of these folks, the ones that want to. That would be amazing. Zach is about to be done. I mean, he's days away from completing the program. He seems great. I'm in touch with him a lot. Marcel is frustratingly close, but he's got real challenges on where he's going to live next. But he can talk to us about that. Jean's good. He's got a little ways to go as far as timing. He got there later than that. Stephen, I met with yesterday, and he brought me photos. We got together, and I'm concerned, and he's concerned. He's not getting enough hours at work. They've been waiting for the past couple of months, so I can't wait to go deliver this.
So after we spoke about getting Stephen involved, I sent him the text asking him if he was still interested or potentially interested in working with us. He got back to me right away. It sounds like a great opportunity, but I've had some issues at the house. Realistically speaking, I won't be around to even make our appointment. I'm sorry. I'll keep you posted, but for now, I would have to assume the worst and say I more than likely won't make it. And I said, what do you need? And he said, I wish it was that simple. I'm at the mercy of the courts. I don't know. I'm sure he says he's going to turn himself in. I don't know where he's right now.
Didn't hear from or anything about Stephen for a few days. So I called the superintendent down at Norfolk and confirmed that he was in custody at Norfolk Corrections. He let me know that he would be appearing in front of the drug court. We went down and saw him at the drug court. It was hard to hear what the judge said. She said that she would give him another chance and that she was worried about him.
But I'm shaking, breaking, living in relapse, living in relapse, living in relapse. So on again.
Pretty shitty. For lack of a better word.
For the afraid.
I just really feel like I let a lot of people down, including myself. I made a very impulsive decision. And then a couple weeks later is when I walked in the courthouse and I found out that I did fail the errand. I assumed the worst, I feared the worst. And I took off for the weekend. I went and got my belongings, had those arranged for those to be picked up. I squared things away with my work. I had a job interview lined up for a couple days later. I had canceled that, told them, it was just a lot of things a lot of loose ends that I wanted to tie up over the next couple of days. And then it was my daughter's birthday. So I got, I think I came here on the 22nd and she was turning 7 on the 24th. So I got to spend one of the days with her, in my hometown and on a family pass, and I had an extra hour.
Can we
And
talk about what the substance was?
yeah, it was cocaine.
It was hard for me to hear what the judge said to you. Her concern was that if this continued, that you would die.
She had made that comment.
I mean, that was hard for me to hear. I don't know what that was like for you to hear.
I mean, I've been there. I've been the person that's been like, oh, like, just gonna do it this one time. And next thing you know, you wake up surrounded by paramedics and police, police officers and firefighters because what you did almost killed you.
Let me ask you about that, because that's not something we've talked about. Have you ever OD'd?
Yes. I was with this woman and I decided to use. And I didn't think anything of it. It was such a small amount. I remember standing up and telling her, I said, grab the Narcan. That's all I remember until I was in the back of an ambulance with some sort of device lodged in my throat. They told me that when they got there that I was gurgling and that they said I had stopped breathing. They actually told me they're like, you're lucky to be alive. I guess they had hit me, when I say hit me, like they had given me several doses of Narcan, which is, I mean, it's a miracle drug. I mean, it saves tons of lives. They gave me a couple doses of that. It didn't do anything. And again, so they resuscitated me and then they gave me an IV. And I guess that's when I came. So, like I'm almost 30, and like, look at where I'm at, look at what I've accomplished. Like, it's pretty sad. I'm capable of a lot better, I deserve a lot better. I deserve a lot better. Not only do my kids and my family deserve a lot better, but like I deserve a lot better. I felt like I was off to a good start. And now I'm starting back at ground zero, which isn't the end of the world. But again, like I said, I'm almost 30. And
Well, you're alive.
yeah, but I'm alive.
I called the Home Depot. They said, come in for an interview. And I got the job. I work in the garden department.
You do?
Yeah. I get settled there and get full-time at Home Depot and be ready for September to go to school and it not be an issue like it is now. Because I was signed up and ready to go, but I put in the request with my counselor, Ben, and he said, no, we don't do school here. See, what his concern is that with my situation, just getting out after a very long period of time, coming out and overwhelming myself, doing too many things at one time. And I know that could catch up to a person. And, people can burn out, people can get stressed out. And if they're not grounded in their recovery, they could end up relapse. With all that going on and being denied over and over different sober houses that I found, it started to get a little bit frustrating. She came to visit me and we had a nice conversation, and one conversation led to another, and we eventually became involved. To see something that I wrote in a book, it's a beautiful thing, and it makes me feel like I'm really on my way. I have stable employment at the time. I'm in the process of getting a stable residence, as long as I continue to navigate and appreciate the fact that there are going to be challenging times.
So today we are moving some furniture into Gene's new place, and Gene has actually graduated from the program. He has been working full time and just got a new place with his fiance Megan, but they put all of their money into the deposit and the first month's rent. And while we were talking, he let me know that they had absolutely no furniture in the apartment. That's what we're doing today. I have a friend named Caleb who offered to bring over some furniture, so here we go.
You grab the mirrors right there, hanging on the wall.
Way to power it up there, Gino. Now you got a bed.
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is my birthday, man.
I know.
I'll be 37 years old. Wow. I don't even want it to be my birthday. 37 years old, huh? I thought I only lived to see 30. We're going to get married, so we're trying to see if we go to City Hall and get a marriage license or something, me and her.
On your birthday?
Yeah, why not? Right.
When are you going to tell me about it?
What? It was a surprise, actually.
Happy birthday! How are you? Good to see you. Let's just do a quick happy birthday first.
Oh, mine's is in it?
Yours is in it.
Get out of here. Oh.
3 of yours are in it.
You want me to read them out
Yeah,
loud?
read that one out loud.
Okay. If walls could talk. If walls could talk, they would tell me many things about myself that I don't even know. There is no cure for my condition, only treatment. I ask God to one day give me the power to treat my demons. I want to learn how to be a part of something different. All I've been doing my whole life is crashing nonstop. So just for today, I will shut up and listen. That's good stuff.
That's it. It's here.
Thanks. Brought little tears to my eyes and shit. Oh, sorry.
That's good stuff.
Blow out those candles before they.
Yeah, let me blow them out, man. They make a wish. To me, like so far, since this is all new to me. After I just graduated this program, all I wanted to do was to be responsible. Be able to get a job, maintain it. Get a place. My fiance that I love her so much. The woman that I want to spend the rest of my life with, and just have a normal life. It was just the only thing I ever wanted. But I didn't have it because of the choices I made. So I'm just trying to make right ones now. Listen, since I'm 37 today, right? From when I was 21 till about 2 months ago, I was always on probation and parole, probation most of the time. You know what I mean? So it was pretty my whole life being on probation. Now the chains are broken. Like I don't want that on me anymore. Like I look at South Bay every time I drive every morning, drinking my coffee. I'd be like, so it's like I don't want to go back to that life. I know how it is. I can see the window where I was at.
When we first met, we were both getting high pretty bad. It was really bad. Anything in this world that you love with all your heart, drugs will take it away. Once someone tries heroin, it's maybe one time you could get away with it, but the second time the claws are in, you're a heroin addict. And you never think, you're like, oh, that would never happen to me. I could say no. It doesn't happen that way. It's the only drug I know that can talk to you in your own voice.
This is my room in here. It's kind of where I spent a lot of my time in my drug use. Hopefully this Friday, I'll be graduating the program. I've been there for 6 months. I'm just waiting on parole to basically approve me coming back home, which they've have in the past, so it shouldn't be an issue. It's kind of just waiting on them to actually come here and do their whole process. What makes this time different is, like last summer I was at a program and I was kind of half-assing it, and at the end I got high, failed a drug test, went back to prison for a year, 4 days away from leaving a program, and I was back in prison. It made me kind of grow up faster. I shouldn't say faster because I was 31 years old when I went to prison, but I think it made me just finally grow up, I guess, and just realize that things we're doing in my life obviously weren't what I should be doing, and I need to grow up, basically. It made me become more of a man, I guess. So
Hard way to do it.
yeah, but probably the only way that I would have done it, maybe. Who knows? At least it made me do it, which is all that matters.
Did you ever think before that, how is this going to end?
No, not really. I just hoped maybe one day I could have just snapped my fingers and been done with it, but obviously that's not a reality. I never really thought about how it was eventually going to stop. I just kind of thought that one day maybe I'll be able to stop, but the only way I was able to stop was I was forced to stop through prison. So the title is The Dope Sick Diaries. When I was brought back downstairs, I asked to make another phone call and call my parents. My mother answered this time, and the first thing she said to me was, "So how long have you been shooting heroin?" I could hear the hurt and anger in their voices. They always thought I just had a problem with painkillers. Phone call was coming to an end. I told them I loved them, and my mother said it back. That was the first time I'd said I love you to my parents since I was very little. I went back to the holding cell, and the dope sickness was starting to kick in. By the time lunch came around, I had thrown up 2 or 3 times. I would have been happy if someone came down and just ended my life.
Hey, Megan, it's Cheryl. How are you? I'm so sorry to bother you, and I promised I wasn't going to get in the middle of this, so I'm I'm sure you know why because I'm sure you know why I'm calling. I've gotten a few messages from him already about, what you guys are going through, and he's a mess. He said that he was very insulting to you and that he feels horrible about it. I didn't know that happened. He did not tell me that. He didn't not. Okay. Jesus, Megan. When we came over for your birthday. And you guys were living in the same space. Was
What,
that a
me and
lot of
Megan?
pressure? Because it was not a lot of...
Me and Megan?
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot of pressure because, I wasn't accustomed to that. We're arguing about, we didn't have money.
Mhm.
If she wanted to go out, I couldn't really take her out because it was a company van, you know what I mean, and drive her places. I'm trying to get used to a life that is not about crimes. It's not about going to jail. It's not about, waking up in a stolen car the next day. I'm trying to do better, and now that I finally found myself in a relationship, but for now, right now, I'm hurt. It's not about the high anymore, man. It's about saving your life. You know what I mean? Because if you don't save your life, nobody's gonna save it for you.
Here it's speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. Thoughts become actions, actions become habits, habits become character. In the end, your character becomes your legacy. That's what it says. I just randomly saw that one day and I really liked that saying, and so I got it tattooed on me. On the back of my leg, I have a tattoo for a friend that died of a drug overdose. He died way before I got involved in heroin. At that time, I had said I would never use heroin, and then a year later, I was using heroin.
You just got a job like a minute ago.
Yes. So last week, I got let go from my job. Just creative differences is the best way to put it. But literally, we were waiting here, getting things set up. I got a phone call for a job I interviewed the other day. I'll be starting, next Monday or Tuesday, which is awesome. It's definitely a load off my mind because it was something I was definitely worried about. The good thing is when I lost my job last week, I talked to my parole officer and he was very understandable of the situation. They'll give you a couple weeks really to find a job, and if you don't have a job, it's a violation of your parole, and so they can send you back for it. It's with an automotive delivery company, deliver auto parts to dealerships. I believe the end of May, start co-facilitating a writers group for people in recovery on Monday nights. Really, the biggest challenge for me right now is getting back to kind of everyday life for the most part in a social environment, because I feel a little socially awkward, especially being around people that I know. Putting my story on paper and seeing it and then speaking it, to me, are 2 completely different things because I'm better at expressing myself writing than speaking. That's just how I am.
We met, it was almost 6 years ago. Me and his sister went to middle school together. She was telling me about her brother, and she thought that I would be like a really good person for him to be around. She knows me very well and what I'm about. I'm working, I'm a mom. All of a sudden I got this letter one day and I read it, and I kind of got interested in finding out a little bit more about him. And I wanted to just really see if he was the same person that was writing this letter. She just wanted her brother to have someone good in his life. And so I appreciated that. And so I wanted to give it a chance myself because I needed something good in my life too. And I didn't know what it could turn into. It ended up being that we developed our own friendship. Everybody needs a chance, you know, and I didn't like it when people always brought up, you know, what I had done when I was young, or I'm like, look at what I am or where I am now. And so I kind of felt like people who get incarcerated, they need that opportunity too. I wanted him to give me a chance, and I wanted to give him a chance too.
The letters that I was writing to her, the way I was able to express myself, the way I was able to receive letters from her that helped me get through another day. When I do feel like I'm isolated or shut off, it reminds me of my prison experience where I was placed in isolation. And to be placed in isolation in a locked room where there's nobody there but you, a little tiny space, and you feel like you're buried alive. The longest isolation term that I served was 13 months straight. One of the ways that I was able to survive those experiences was because I would read and I would write. But as far as becoming institutionalized, it's the kind of thing to where it affects the human nature in one way or another. And that's all I'm gonna say.
I mean, I think I've been out just under 5 weeks right now. So like 5 weeks ago, like I still wasn't sure if I was going to be doing a year in jail. I just remember like when I walked through there, like it was just the feeling like I'm back. This is where I brought myself back to. And then like it was hard because like I didn't get to see my kids, nor would I really want to see them in that sort of environment. I wouldn't want either one of them coming up to a jail to like talk to me through glass. You know, it's just, no, I wouldn't want it. But like I see my daughter and I open the door and like she jumps on me, you know what I mean? Like, and that's such a good feeling. And like my son, he's 19 months now. Just him like hugging me the other day. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, he's giving me a hug. And his mom looked over and she was just smiling, you know what I mean? Like that's huge. Like it's the little moments like that, like it's just the memories, you know, like that's what I wanna be present for. I remember reading something a few days ago. It said, who you were, who you are, and who you will be are three completely different people.
Everybody for coming out tonight. I know that there's a lot of people in here that are nervous to come up. I'm nervous myself, but I came home from prison and I said I'm gonna do something different. And I just want to say thank you to Cheryl for putting us in a position, man. I've been homeless. I've been suffering from addiction my whole life since I was 13, not making my mother proud, not being a good father. And she's put me in a position to get my confidence back. So I just wanted to say thank you before it started, because since I graduated from high school, I haven't been able to do anything to make anybody proud. And so this will hopefully open the door tonight to be able to make my family proud. So I just wanted to say thank you before we started.
Zachary Alonso. Zachary Alonso, one of our newest assistant facilitators at Writers Without Margins.
All right, so this is an excerpt from my story called The Dope Stick Diaries. Around 4:30 p.m., I was finally called up to the courtroom, handcuffed and shackled. As I was escorted in, shackles clanging, I looked over and saw my parents. My mother was weeping. I'm sure she was hurt and scared seeing her son at his absolute lowest point. The DA described their side of the case, and the way everything was said and how I was portrayed, you would have thought I committed murder. Thank you.
Mr. Marceau. The yellow thing in the middle was blue because it was being true to its nature. Being the center surrounded by petals that stretch high and wide, which glistened, reaching for the sky. Those petals stem from me, but they are not enough, are they? Or should I let it be that the truth really is that we are one and the same, just different?
I went through a broken relationship recently, and it was no physical harm or anything, but the police was called, and And I ran out of the house scared, just like I used to do, you know. It reminded me of the person I used to be a long time ago. So I ran in the van, and the first place I went was to Jackson Square because I was mad. I had no control of trying to get back to fix my relationship, and I had no control over the things that was going on around me. So I thought that the only control that I had was to stick a needle in my arm. And I slept in my van for one night right by Jackson Square, and I stayed strong, I didn't use, and I wrote.
Tonight is a night for us to be proud and share with all of you the fruit of many creative writing sessions. It's the piece that I chose for my entry in this journal. It's titled "The Mind Wants / The Heart Wants." The mind wants luxurious vacations to unheard of islands. The heart only wants to wake up in the morning to children laughing and playing, with smeared ketchup still on their faces from that morning's omelet. Most of all, it wants to know that the time, sweat, and tears spent were a small sacrifice for the family you love and the life that you love to enjoy.
I want to thank everyone who read. I want to thank everyone who came out and supported the folks who read. Thank you so much for making this event possible.
One of the things that I wanted to say, if I may, is that when I first got out of the car and looked up at this church, I thought about the first time that I came here to a reading when Randall was here. And here I am today when I was walking in saying, wow, it's me that is one of the individuals that's going to be actually doing a reading and sharing. And so it just made me so excited and made me feel real good about the path that I'm on.
Being here before is like, as part of the audience, and
Right.
today the audience came for us.
Let me ask you a question, because you said you almost didn't come tonight, and you sent me a text. You actually called me, and it didn't sound like you were going to come.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I didn't really want to show my face here. I really didn't. You know what I mean? I was just nervous. But then I'm thinking of how you've been there for me, how you didn't give up on me, because you didn't give up on me.
Because I was feeding off y'all. I don't know if y'all know it or not, but when I saw Zach standing over there by the door, that's why I went, because Zach is a part of my support system. And I went over there, I felt comfortable, and I said, I hope they called him up there first because I could get some of his energy.
I just want to know, did anyone see my heart beating through my shirt?
I've talked to people for the past 5-10 years who've been in the middle of this, and they're among the grittiest and gutsiest people I've ever met. Taking on a beast of extraordinary proportions and fighting it daily, every single day. And they deserve our respect and our love and our support. God bless you all.
I'll always tell it like it is, that's the bottom line. If you just living to exist, you on borrowed time. Don't ever let them take your soul, no, no, no. Don't ever let them take your soul, no, no, no. I'll always tell it like it is, that's the bottom line. If you just living to exist, you on borrowed time. Don't ever let them take your soul, no, no, no. Don't ever let them take your soul, no, no, no. That's the bottom line.
We have somehow set up a structure where we are pushing people that are sick, people suffering from mental and behavioral illness, people suffering with addiction, into arguably the most dangerous one of them all, a heroin addiction.
I think it's important when I talk about addiction or alcoholism pertains to me, so people can see that anything's possible. I'm the mayor of Boston. And not everyone's going to be the mayor of Boston or be a United States senator or be whatever in politics. But just being a good person, being a good father, being a good mother, being a good brother, son, friend, whatever it is, there's hope there.
Treatment works. We just don't have enough beds. That's why there's long waiting lists. We lose people. People don't get the opportunities they need. People don't get the duration of treatment they need. because we don't have enough beds.
Reentry is a public safety component. Years ago, it might have been considered liberal or progressive, or some folks thought it was a waste of taxpayers' money. It reduces crime. It's that simple. These programs reduce crime.
Fundamentally, we can have the best treatment available, but if people are too afraid to ask for it, it doesn't make a difference. So we need to change people's hearts and minds. Boston Medical Center, we sit at the epicenter of this epidemic. And about a month ago, I was leaving a meeting for my building, and I was crossing Massachusetts Avenue. And if any of you haven't been to Mass Ave and seen the extraordinary impact of this epidemic on people in our community, come over and take a look of the work that we have to do. Well, there was a car driving by, and he had his window open. And he saw all the people milling about, and these are people who are homeless, people with histories of mental health and substance use disorders who have not yet found their pathway to recovery. And he said, as he was driving by, and I could hear him clearly say, we should just line them up and shoot them. And what it said to me was, we still have work to do.
Armed robbery, 10 to 15 minutes ago.
New at 10, video of an armed robbery in Somerville. The score, $30,000 in watches. It's a story we've been following for several days now. Boston 25 News reporter Ted Daniel joining us live. And Ted, police are hoping that time will run out soon on the suspect's freedom.
Well, we've shown still images of the suspect, Vanessa. Tonight, we have the full video from the stealthy heist. And he's off with $30,000 in watches from the Kay Jewelers at Assembly Row. The daytime holdup captured by multiple surveillance cameras. That's the guy with the hat and sunglasses entering the store. Watch as the robber hands the store manager the bag. And then, according to Somerville police, he discreetly flashes a .45 caliber handgun.
He's keeping it tight so that he doesn't cause alarm via the other store patrons. But it looks like he might have it pressed up against the glass.
The other customers have no idea what's happening right next to them. Once the bag is filled, he's gone. There was no getaway car. Surveillance cameras at Assembly Row show the robber hopped an Orange Line train at Assembly Station. Here's a better look at the guy's face without the sunglasses from a security camera at a different store.
I found out when I was leaving the workshop.
I honestly didn't believe it initially.
No.
Obviously, once we talked a little bit, I knew it was pretty serious. I knew that what you said must have been true because you had referenced pictures and newspaper articles. So the first thing I did was get online and look it all up. And what I saw was kind of mind-blowing. I mean, his face was plastered all over the internet. It took one search on Google to find half a dozen articles.
That would have been the last person I would have thought would have ended up in that situation again. Honestly, I can say I could have seen myself ending up back before someone like him.
This man just spent 3 decades, which is more than 50% of his entire life. There has to be, a level of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Being institutionalized?
Institutionalized, yeah. You would think that they have plans, they have programs, they have things in place. He went through the program we were all at, and 6 months just isn't enough. And the level of care, what they offered just wasn't enough.
Yeah.
27 years, you can't undo that in 6 months and a couple, daytime classes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can't.
20 feet wall surround. 23 in just 1 hour out.
So the piece I'm going to read is called The Journey. It's one of the first pieces I did actually in the workshop that we're going to experience. So this is The Journey. All about the journey, produced expressly for an audience of one. You are a long way from home in a world full of doubts. Wherever you are, it could be an alternative reality. One of your worst kept secrets is that you have a fear of losing your freedom. You are now terrified. Thank you.
Yeah, it's been pretty much a year, and I didn't imagine myself doing stuff like this, really. I mean, I've always kind of thought of maybe wanting to do stuff like this, but never really thought it would actually happen. And now that I'm actually like doing it, it's awesome.
Straight, I'm going straight. Yeah, I'm going straight. Fluorescent sun blaring down. The voices inside, they start to sound like my own, all alone, yet amongst the crowd, saying it's easier in than it is out. Like the altar call followed by sin, I walk right out to find my way back.
My dad was an addict, and it is how he died. And it happened last year when we were starting this project. And I don't talk about it a lot. Gene and Zach and Marcel and Steven probably know more about it than most people. So
I'm going straight, just gain money and sell the clothes that I wear. I'm going straight, I'm going. Straight, I'm going straight. I'm looking for somewhere beneath my soul yearns to go straight. I'm going straight. Yeah, I'm going. I'm going. Days feeling like a week, you can't sleep, you don't know why. Hate to think about living your dreams, so you don't try. Staring at a vision in the mirror, bet it won't lie. Watching as your life blows by, make your soul cry. It's feeling like a week, you can't sleep, you don't know why. Hate to think about living your dreams, so you don't try. Staring at a vision in the mirror, bet it won't lie. Watching as your life blows by, make your soul cry. To live or exist, takes a bigger to Since life without loving, if you ain't first loving you, why you building you wealth? You should be dealing with help.
This credit song is a jam.
I love it. Hi, how are y'all?
Hey everybody. What a fantastic.
It's a hard movie to talk to people about because, you know, it's almost like it's hard to spoil. It spoils itself. It's really an insight into these guys who are dealing with so many problems.
Yeah.
And they're the cause of some of their problems, just like any human being that you would know.
Yeah.
You know,
just an incredible piece, really powerful. This is my second time watching it, and I was still struck by a lot of little details that just stood out in these stories. It's really important that these stories get told directly like this, because I think a lot of people just don't understand what folks are going through who are going through these kind of struggles, you know, with addiction and poverty and crime and abuse and stuff like that. I think a lot of people, it's easy to look at that from the outside and kind of think that you understand it, but maybe you don't really understand what these people are going through as well as you thought. And I think this is the type of piece that really helps to shine a light on that.
and you know, if you know anybody that's been incarcerated, even sitting down and talking for 45 minutes, it's not like it gets across all of what they've been through and what that journey is like. And in some cases, you'll be talking to somebody days and weeks after you meet them and still be learning new things. But I think that this film being one that just captures a long amount of time with them going through these workshops, you can see how their relationships to each other and to their relationships with Cheryl, the facilitator, all change over time. And you start kind of at a place of skepticism, just like these guys did with the workshops. But over time, just giving you the space to express yourself, it increases your amount of trust in the process and your amount of trust for the people around you and your optimism for the people around you. And, you know, that optimism ain't always perfect because it sometimes leads to you being disappointed when things don't go the way you want. But I think most people would say that it's worth it to have that connection and to have that feeling. And it's something you can only know when you've seen it a little bit.
Yeah. And this is obviously, you can't fix the whole system with just a few writing workshops, but it's not meaningless. You know, incarceration in the US is out of control. We are incarcerating just an alarming number of our citizens. And on top of that, we're not providing them with all the resources they need to return to society, which is even more damning in some ways. You know, people are increasingly starting to feel like some of this needs to change. 51% of Democrats in a recent poll said there's too many people in prison. And it wasn't like 49% said we need
First of
more or
all,
something like that. It was, you know, a complicated breakdown after that. So, you know, that's pretty significant right there. That's more than half of people registered to vote Democrat think that there's a problem there. And Republicans aren't actually as far behind as you might expect either.
That's what I was going to add. I was going to say, you know, your first feeling is that, boy, this should be more, especially if you know anybody that's been incarcerated. But this has been a lot slower, but it's been across all political persuasions. Just the number of Republicans who think, wow, we spend a whole lot of money on prisons has gone up in the last few years. And we even had sentencing reform bill passing a few years ago under the Trump administration. So it's not like this is like many issues where it's just on one side of where your politics are. This is something that's really individual. But yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add, you know, something you see in the polling in the last few years in particular is that in the past, you would see more so in the polling, people who knew someone who was incarcerated would be more sympathetic. But now you're seeing people who have never known anybody that's been incarcerated are increasingly sympathetic to this issue. So I think a lot of people are starting to realize that, you know, this system is not working completely. There have been some really powerful studies in the last couple of years about punitive justice and its many failings. And on the other hand, there have been some attempts to create better systems in some parts of this country. Oregon, for instance, in the last couple of years in particular, they're looking to the Norwegian model of imprisonment, which is if you read about how they imprison people in Norway, it sounds pretty radical compared to American prisons. I mean, these are folks who are allowed to leave a lot, for one thing. That's a big difference in Norwegian prisons. It's just letting them leave a lot because you've already taken away their freedom. Like, let them go outside and like have a job and see their family more, you know? Is really good for rehabilitative processes. You know, the documentary mentioned that people getting just out of prison, they're very likely to commit crimes again. They're very likely to overdose.
Kennedy,
this is the lack of of systemic support.
You should shoot us closer together and get more of our heads.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I love that a lot more. But yeah, you were talking about how this is something that's widespread, and that a lot of change has been happening about that recently. Go back into that.
Yeah, so like I said, people are starting to try some different things. So in Oregon, they're trying some aspects of the Norway model, where again, these folks are not forced to be in the cell 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The idea is that if your freedom has been taken away, that's enough on some levels. and
Right.
that you don't necessarily have to be in that cell every day. You're still going to know that you're not free. You
Right.
know, like you're still going to know that you don't have regular freedom anymore. And you're still going to be dealing with that consequence. But if people spend time with their families on a regular basis while they're in prison, like go home and eat dinner with mom and dad, or
Right.
go home and see their kids, or whatever it is, those folks are a lot less likely to come out of prison and go straight back into a bad situation.
So much of the current, features around the prison system are very financial. I mean, as I was here watching the stream on my end, we were talking about Paul Howard, we were talking about local counties, DeKalb, Cherokee, Cobb, all of these like really local municipalities in Atlanta. We all have stories about how they contribute to the justice system for people who we know, or for people who left jail, or for people who've been there for a while. It's not something that's limited to one location. And I think
Not at
that the
all.
more developed that a country gets, the better it is at dealing with people who are imprisoned. I mean, when you think of really bad conditions in prison, you usually think of countries that are considered to be in the third world. In the United States, you're looking at the highest number and the highest proportion of people who are in prison. And for each of those situations, you can find some kind of financial relationship, whether that's quotas on behalf of the police, whether that's elections on behalf of the DA or judge who has just an incentive to look tough on crime every election season. We see that just across the country. And it's a huge network of incentives because the justice system has a huge network of incentives that it's attached to.
Yep. Yeah. A recent study came out from the AP News talking about just how this prison labor is being exploited and things like that. And, this stuff runs really deep. But on the other hand, taking it back to Oregon and how they've been trying some new models in some of their prisons, these prisons where they're doing the Norwegian model of less solitary confinement, more activities, more positive, behavioral enforcement and stuff like that. They're seeing 75% in the range of 75% reductions in like violence in the prison, both between inmates and guards. So there is a better way. There is a better way. We just have to keep working towards it, and it's so great to be involved with a organization like Writers Without Margins, who is actively, these folks are actively working on this. Cheryl's actively, trying to see how she can make a difference. And so again, you can't fix everyone with a few writing workshops, but Cheryl's helping people to find their way back to society through this work. And I just want to point out that this type of stuff works consistently. There's have been a number of studies. A couple of universities have released studies about the power of art in prison, the power of art therapy on folks that are being rehabilitated and things like that. There has been increasing numbers of things like there's a new theatrical program called Rehabilitation Through the Arts that's been working with some prisons. And that's a new program that's, it's helping these prisoners to do things that they would have never had access to previously. And it's very aspirational to do theater, right? Like you get to be someone else for a few hours, and I think that's potentially really good for these people. And that's what the studies are indicating, is that that ability to be aspirational through this medium and imagine something different, imagine a different world, imagine a different life. And then it's like, hey, well, I could have a different life, right?
Right. Yeah. What you're saying all makes sense. We already know what works in terms of taking people who are in a dark place mentally and restoring them and healing them and making them feel more capable of dealing with the day. It's really just a matter of spreading that and number one, having those kind of conversations locally with other people who are inclined to work on this problem, and the other is just things that are within ourselves. Have you seen our guide? We're giving this out to people at the screening. Look at how great that looks. And it's got, follow today's experience. And as you go through it, and don't worry if you're watching this, after the event, the RSVP page will become a page for this. So this is definitely an event that will not be like a come lately type event, but you'll see, get organized. You'll see compassion. You'll choose refining your voice. You'll see our sharing booth, and you'll also get the opportunity to build community with us. And each of these days will take you to the story of another community partner who contributed to making this event work. So, for the 5th day, you see us, but you'll also see Compassion in Atlanta, who provided some materials and provided us with some connections to make this thing work. You'll also see All of Us or None. Hey, you talked about this idea of prison labor. It's actually a big issue in Georgia. You have the 13th Amendment, which abolished slavery, but it's except in the case of a duly, a conviction. Once you've been convicted, you enter a wave of sublegal labor, whether that comes from, getting you to work for low wages or no wages. And there's a film. Yeah,
Trustee.
Yeah, the
Trustee, and that it works. You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's time. You have to work all day. Then you get off 5 o'clock in the evening, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
But you don't get paid. But sometimes they'll give you $3, $2 an hour, goes on your books, or they'll give you some time off on your sentence for doing that. It's called good time. You get some of your time taken away. Now they changed it, but in Georgia, it was at one time you get 3 days for every 2 days you serve without any trouble. You get paid for 3. So you serve 2 days, you get paid for 3 days. You take part of your sentence off, you go out and do a third of the sentence, or 2/3 of the sentence. You get released.
Yeah, so knowing all about that, we're actually working on that in Georgia. The group All of Us or None in Georgia, which is co-sponsoring this event, they've got an End Slavery in Georgia petition, and they're working with Nikema Williams, who's the state representative here, and they're working on a federal bill that will.
Let me tell you what's deep now.
Yeah.
When they started getting all these juveniles, okay, I was in Camp Town, I brought there too. You see more of our kids in juvenile than you are being in a rec center or YMCA.
Yeah.
Okay, now, if your child is in jail or in a juvenile from December 31st to January 1st, guess who gets to claim that child? The state.
Wow.
That has that child in custody.
Wow.
You don't even claim your own child. It's not in your custody. He's in the state's custody. He's in the water of the state. How you gonna claim your own child if they in the system? And that's why they want to put him in the system. They're making money off of him sitting in the system. There was a judge that was down in Georgia that he had connections with a juvenile.
Well, as you can see, folks, the event is already starting to pick up a little bit over there at the physical Atlanta location. Let's take a look, though, at one more thing.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, if you want to screen Working in Captivity, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah. We're gonna show one more thing, which is Working in Captivity. It's a short film about this exact problem that we're describing and what can be done about it. Thank you so much for tuning in to watch In Their Shoes with us. And if you're in Atlanta, then Brandon, we'll see you soon.
Hit it.
The 13th Amendment bans slavery with the exception of folks who are incarcerated.
Okay.
The 13th Amendment is what empowers the longevity in the process of slavery.
Slavery is abolished except if you've been found guilty of committing the crime. So if you've been found guilty of committing the felony, you no longer are an American citizen. You are now a slave.
And when you call the Department of Corrections, they will tell you in no uncertain terms, check your 13th Amendment. It's legal. You get convicted of a crime, then we can work you.
Prison is a business. It's a business.
Yes.
Whether it pays people or not, it is a booming business in this country.
Incarcerated people provide over $11 billion in services each year. And that is from working in plants, that's making furniture, lingerie, working in call centers, and they're working as garbage collectors. They work as clerks in the courthouse.
The city using laborers to clean the buildings. I see them at the fire department.
Fighting forest fires. They're doing landscaping on the highways, a lot of water treatment plants. They clean up parks and recs.
In the conditions with no heat, in the conditions in the summertime with no air. You know, the conditions were deplorable.
And the more you look, the more you see. They don't know our Braille translation services happen, our license plates, masterses for our public parks and for our higher education, all the paper products, an enormous amount of things. People really are unaware.
I see them walking around in the government center. Nobody supervise them. They got the striped suits on. They paint. They doing plumbing. They just, that's their job. Okay. But then when they get out, they can't come and wait for the city to get the same job.
People are not going to the factories because they got a new factory called a prison.
Prison slave labor runs Columbus. They had to lay off a whole bunch of workers in order to replace them with prison slave labor.
Certainly, folks are being employed unpaid to do jobs that other folks could be paid to do, right?
Yes.
And there are a lot of those jobs.
There'll be more jobs available on the outside for people that's not incarcerated, because if you got 100 people working from inside a prison outside, that's 100 jobs that people that's free can have.
Cannot get that job.
Yeah.
When you go and apply for that job, they say we're not hiring. Why would they pay you $30 an hour when they can get somebody to do it for free? People don't understand. People say, oh, I support incarcerated people's labor, but what they're not understanding is that contributes to unemployment on the outside.
Right.
Myself, I've been in prison before. I was in the federal prison in Estelle, South Carolina, and I only made like $12 a month, but we built forklifts for the military.
And most of these jobs, if not all of them, when they get out, they cannot get jobs with those same positions.
So now you go and try to get employment from the same people who's employed you for free, and you can't work for them. And they say, well, I can't work for you because the state law says you can't work for me if you got a felony. So why doesn't that law apply when I'm incarcerated?
It's legal. This is Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. She said it's legal. And I said, just because it's legal, it doesn't make it right.
If people are working, they deserve to be compensated. And where you are living, whether by choice or by law, doesn't affect the fact that you are doing labor that deserves compensation.
Yes. Are you aware that there are some folks who have actually refused to work and get punished? They get their phone calls and visitation taken from them, or get thrown in solitary when they refuse to work.
That's what I was about to say. In the feds, if you don't work, you go to the hole. It's called a shoe.
So therefore, it's not optional. It's not volunteering.
No, it's mandatory.
So when you're made to work for free, that is slavery. Why is it so sensitive when we hear terms like slavery and don't correlate that with incarcerated people?
The first part comes with us not actually engaging in addressing what this country has done historically and currently. And so people are defensive.
Yeah.
The second part is I think people really don't know. People really have no idea how much labor is done in the state of Georgia through our corrections systems.
They knew that you couldn't continue to call people slaves. They said, but people will accept if you call them a criminal.
Basically, it's convict leasing,
Right.
which is an old thing where they
Right.
basically say, hey, we talked to a construction worker. The construction worker gonna give us $10,000 a month.
Right.
If we send them 5 convicts, they're
Right.
gonna pay us 10,000. We're gonna make
Right.
the 5 convicts
right.
go over there to work. The convicts ain't gonna get paid, but we
Right.
just got paid 10,000.
Right.
You utilize them for years while you're in the institution. Again, you're good enough to utilize them while you're in institution. Those skills are great to assist while you're there. Do those things, make money, push out the numbers you need so that the state looks great. Go out and give them the diplomas, assist them all. But then when you get home, you can't get employed.
Many of these towns, these townships, these little small Hickville locations would not have booming economies if Black bodies were not taken from the inner city and the bond money being moved from the inner city to these little small hick towns and building the prison and building a new high school and building a new housing and building the shopping plaza and building the economy.
The census helps you get parking lots, they help you get accessible, all these different things. And you're telling me you counted me in a county. That's why you see a lot of these prisons in these small, poor counties, rural counties, because that's how they make their money, off the speed tickets and off the prisons. And they're counting those 5,000 people as residents to say, hey, we need more handicapped parking spaces. We need a recreational center. We need this and we need that. You're counting these people.
They are counted. Yep.
But they can't benefit from the fact that, you know, they're able to go to that same park that just got built off of their numbers with their kids.
Most of the time, when there is refusal on banishing different systems or adding programs, money is the common driver. So what about the money is going on that they're so hard pressed to not let go of it?
They have stuff like that, and they say we need people at the civic center. We just had a flood. We need people to come clean this road up. We had this. Why are they not saying we need to hire 15 people down here at the civic center? We need to pay 20 people to come and do this. Why are they not doing that? And why are they choosing to use incarcerated people?
Because it would cost them money instead of making it would cost them money and not make them money.
And the goal is to make money.
And the goal has always been to make money. And also it's always to keep the city in a position of dominance.
Here in Columbus, I know trash went from 2 days to 1 day a couple of years ago. And last year, the mayor was cited in an interview that he did with the news that the residents were complaining because trash had been backed up and folks were complaining why it wasn't being picked up. And they asked him what was the reason why the trash wasn't being picked up. And he said, well, we don't have enough prisoners, i.e. we got a shortage of slaves. And so I immediately felt like when you say we have a shortage of slaves, the result is we got to figure out what we have to do to get more slaves to get out here to dump more of our trash.
When I went to the license plate making factory, what I was told was that folks who were chosen to work this job were chosen because they would be there for a long time. Now, if it's a training job, if it's intended for you to be able to transition to another job, then wouldn't you want folks for whom that transition is going to happen? Wouldn't you want as many folks to be helped as you could?
They should be able to just transition right on into that job, because obviously it's a job because they had them doing it. So why couldn't, if I'm doing it right now and I'm getting out in 6 months, why can't I just transition and that's my job when I get out?
It's making too much money for it to make sense right now.
And the criminal legal system itself is
Making
based on a
monetary
money
thing.
You know, the IRS, Walisha, even has something on their website that makes a notation that just because a person is incarcerated does not exempt them from paying federal taxes, federal income taxes, if they qualify to pay them. And the Department of Education has a notice on their site that lets people know that they don't get an automatic deferment just because they're incarcerated and not making money from paying those student loan payments. So I want people to be full well aware that we have federal regulations that make sure we're still paying on things that we owe on, even while we're in carceral systems, slavery systems in the state that don't allow us to make money.
If you took away what the I hate this word, but what the inmates do inside of facilities, that would open up so many doors for so many community members who are without jobs.
Once you become a ward or of the state or the feds, there's no way for you to get reintroduced into society as a regular American citizen.
They can work you for free because you don't have the rights to defend yourself. You don't. That's why when you get out, you gotta get your right to vote back after a certain time. You gotta get your right to bear arms after a certain time, and that's if Georgia decides to give them to you. They don't come back automatically.
Voting rights, right? So some people say, oh, restoration of rights, but there's another step there, right? Why are you losing your rights at all?
That people who have lost everything because of incarceration are the people who are the most willing and able to commit to jobs when they come out. Those people can be committing to those jobs when they're inside.
The method doesn't match what's actually happening, right? If it were training, we should see the program focused on transition. And that's not what we're seeing.
This society had basically created mental health problems in our community.
The degree to which we criminalize and incarcerate folks, it really fuels the cycle of poverty in our state. You know, it really, really does. We are taking resources from people and putting them into a system that only makes things worse for those people and then everybody that those people, you know, is associated with.
We got to go deep into the DNA of this whole system because we cannot fix this system. We're to create our own system, and system still sharpens steel, system sharpens systems. So as we build our own system, that's going to be the primary thing. When they come out, they got to be a part of this system that we're creating.
In order to end mass incarceration, we have to have an employment component.
People being able to contribute to their communities and reap the rewards of that is how you build sustainable communities, period.
How can you prevent crime if you do not give people the tools and resources to be able to better themselves and come back to a contributing member of society?
And part of that resources is a job.
We have to create a post incarceration reentry system that actually guides them into a trade or a profession.
To change the charter to allow someone with charges, that's part of it, to change the city ordinances and state laws to allow, you know, people with records to actually work for the government. I mean, they're already working.
They're already working for the government. They just ain't getting
So
paid.
why not have different amendments made to keep them working?
The more states we get who are willing to say out loud, we don't support slavery here, we are going to change it at the state level, the more push we get for the federal.
Common sense says this is why our crime rates are high, this is why our homelessness is high, this is why our communities are the way they are, because we're not giving people what they need to succeed. And when people don't have a job, you're going to continue to have high crime. And to actually train somebody to use somebody under the guise of saying it's for training, and then when they get out because they have a felony, they can't get a job.
It's
That's
its own
it's an excuse.
oxymoron.